Hi, and welcome to Say Grace, Food for Thought and Hospitality. I'm Steve Palmer, and I invite you to join me as we explore the stories behind leaders in the hospitality industry and beyond. Say Grace is a place to reflect, connect, and savor thoughtful narratives. Everyone has a seat at our table. So pull up a chair and let's discover the transformative power of hospitality together. Hey everybody, and welcome to Say Grace, where we unpack all things hospitality. I'm Steve Palmer, your host, and these are the Birmingham sessions. Very honored today to have a good friend. I'm going to read your bio. Very fancy. I'm so happy to welcome Editor-in-Chief of Food and Wine Magazine, Hunter Lewis, to the podcast today. Hunter has served as Editor-in-Chief of Food and Wine since 2017. Overseeing all print, digital, and experiential platforms for the brand. He began his career in food journalism by leaving his job as a newspaper reporter in Durham, North Carolina for New York City, where he walked into Chef Jonathan Waxman's Barbuto and asked for a job in the kitchen. His hands-on restaurant experience became the foundation for his move into media, leading editorial roles at Saveur, Bon Appétit, Southern Living, Cooking Light, to ultimately his current role at Food and Wine. Under his direction, Food and Wine has earned recognition from the James Beard Foundation, International Association of Culinary Professionals, while expanding its digital reach, event programming, and annual Best New Chefs platform to spotlight emerging talent across the country. It's an honor to have him with me today. Hunter, welcome to Say Grace.
Steve, thanks, man. Great to be here.
Thanks for being here. Good to see you. Coming off a warm, fuzzy weekend at the SFA Symposium. And more importantly, and I'm not going to say this right, you introduced me to Connecticut sausage?
Conecuh sausage.
Conecuh sausage. Yeah.
Foundational Alabama ingredient.
At your home last night, it was lovely. Got to meet your daughters and Jen. So it's great. Well, I always start the podcast by asking the same question. How did you find food?
Food found me through my family. Okay. And I grew up in a big extended family in North Carolina. And the Christmas holidays and our summer beach trips down to the South Carolina coast all centered around food. Big tables, long drawn-out dinners where my grandparents sat at the head of the table, and the matriarch and the patriarch, and then aunts and uncles and cousins. And once you graduated into that table and you were old enough to sit there, that was an honor. And so that's really what kickstarted for me, and started that early love and connection to food, being at the table. And then I also found food because when my parents split and we moved up to North Carolina, my mom and my sister and brother and I, we got to know the Domino's pizza guy really, really well.
Right.
And so that's why I learned how to cook myself a steak, and how to bake a potato, and how to try to add a little bit of variation to our middle school diet.
Right.
But it was funny when I moved up to New York and really learned how to be a professional cook. We'd go to the farmer's market almost every day. And that was really my first exposure to eating vegetables at that level, and totally fell in love with it in that way. So I've had all these different milestones and different entry points to food, and kind of feel like it's like an infinite education. You could live 9 lives and still not even scratch the surface of particular cuisines, and so I treat the whole thing like continuing education.
Isn't that curiosity wonderful about our industry? I talk about that a lot. There's always something to learn.
Yeah, I think that is curiosity. I don't care what industry you're in this day and age. If you're not curious about people and life and what makes things tick, it's that curiosity. Trying to make sure my children also carry with them too.
We do an annual leadership conference, and our subject next February is curiosity. Whether you're a cook, front of the house, beverage, just always wanting to learn. When I was coming up in Charleston, we would max credit cards. We would go to the restaurant, drink the bottle of wine. A group of us, we would discuss. And I was like 22.
Yeah, that's research.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's research once you start really calling it research and treat it as such.
That's right.
Like I remember moving to New York 2004, and you couldn't afford to go to Kraft or Nougatine by John George
Yep.
or Gramercy Tavern on a regular night. So we do restaurant week, and we would hit restaurant week so hard. And we do the
wow.
3-course
Yeah,
lunches.
Yeah, of course.
That's what got me into craft. But I treated that even before I had like an official job in food. That was the research, and you just have to go and eat and taste. And it's the same thing as wine.
Mhm.
Like you don't know, you can read all about wine, but you have to taste it, and you have to book in your palate, and you have to create all these different milestones of tastings too. So yeah, that curiosity is huge, and you're always researching one way or another.
Always. How did Barbuto? You just randomly walked in.
Serendipity, man. I mean, I am
What an
so
iconic restaurant.
lucky, and my cousin Rick Margaritov, who owns a restaurant called Present Tense in Nashville, and this awesome sake brand called Pure Land Sake. He had worked for Waxman at Washington Park, his previous restaurant before Barbuto. So Rick was like, hey, why don't you go in, give a resume to those guys, and see if they're hiring. And so Rick was my in, and met the chef at the time, Lynn McNeely, and he said, you can come back and you can work for free for a bit. Justin Smiley is going to be your chef.
Oh, wow.
And I showed up and kept showing up for a couple months and worked for free, and was the lowest guy in the kitchen, and then got hired a few months later, $10 an hour. And
grit, baby, grit.
Yeah, and it's funny, Waxman sat me down at the table, and we're right there by those garage doors, because Barbuto, the old Barbuto, was the old car garage in West Village. And he said, "All right, you're hired. It's gonna be good to have you here. Thanks for all your hard work. And if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen." And I walked away. I was like, "Did he really just say that?" But it made sense.
Yeah,
it made sense. And Barbuto became my school. That was my like proving ground, my education. I got broken down as a cook with some experience in North Carolina and elsewhere, but really got built back up in that style of rustic Italian California cuisine, working with live fire and working that line that was not a brigade system. You really had to be an all-purpose cook and learn how to do a lot of different things, from butchering fish to meat to building sauces to working the fryer to making pastas. Yeah, scooping gelato. There was not a lot of hierarchy, and there was a lot of chaos at the time. But it really was sort of forged by fire in that way. Right. And this is really the old days of like that last old guard kitchen network and old ways. And then that took me to California. Got to help Jonathan open a restaurant out in California in Sonoma County, and that was a completely different animal.
Where in Sonoma?
Sebastopol.
Okay.
So I was there for about a year.
Great wines out of Sebastopol.
Yeah, and that was a great entree into wine, and taught me a lot about small farmers. So we had a lot of people. Yep. The runner, his family business was making wine, so he'd bring his wines into taste, and it wasn't about the big boys; it was about these small producers all over Sonoma County. So that was a different kind of dream, because New York City was like that, like hustle and bustle, and the Union Square Green Market was our conduit to all the farmers and producers. And then you get to Sonoma County, and like the produce there was better than anything in France or Italy. Right. It was like manna. So like the product you were using, and then your access to wine, your access to incredible ingredients was like, it was just stellar.
I didn't know you were in California. That's cool. Yeah, how long were you there?
Just for a year. And then I moved back to New York and got my first magazine job at Saveur. But having that exposure to opening a restaurant and being on that opening team and getting that first review from the Chronicle, knowing what it was like to be, firing that steak that the critic, at the time it was Michael Bauer, what he was going to be eating, and then waiting for that review to come out. that was a great experience for me and what I do now. We don't review restaurants in that way, but being on that side of the past, being on that side of the kitchen informs what I do every single day at work and at home, really.
I kind of miss those days. Social media has obviously changed all of that, but we would put up posters, pictures of the reviewer, $100 reward for anybody
That's right.
And Jeremiah Bacon, our chef partner, when he knew, he would cook he'd tell the line cooks, put 3 on and we're going to pick the best.
The best.
I
Smart.
mean, like all of the machinations of trying to get that review. I kind of miss that.
Well, it used to be so singular. It was so
Right.
focused, and that's when traditional media were the gatekeepers of the information and the arbiter of taste, and there are still outlets that do that really well. But now everybody's got an opinion.
Yeah.
Whether it's Yelp or on their own social media.
Right.
The influencers are coming in and doing their thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That's big right now.
It is a very different game right now.
And so when you moved back to New York, did you know, okay, I'm going to media? Was that?
Well, it was really tough because I really fell in love with the cooking game. Like I really fell in love with the craft and the repetition and building up skills, the camaraderie in the kitchen, the teamwork, the adrenaline, all of that reminded me of being an athlete again. And I really thought long and hard about like taking that chef life track. It would have taken me a lot more time and rigor to become an actual chef. But I was romanced by that whole idea, and loved that experience of cooking in New York and in California. But I felt like I'd already invested 4 years in college, getting a journalism degree at Carolina. I'd already invested time at the newspaper, getting my portfolio together, and I'd moved up to New York to learn how to cook, to then get a job in media. And I was like, this is the time. I got to get back to New York and give this a shot. And then that one magazine job, then it was a springboard for the next and the next, and here I am.
Right. How was media different than? It's almost a rhetorical question, but your first gig at Saveur, how was that different than? Not necessarily your position, but Food and Wine magazine.
I mean, honestly, like that first job at Saveur was not that much different than being a line cook at Barbuto. Meaning, like we were like guerrilla journalists. Like we did everything. You didn't have a bunch of stylists and photographers and what I saw at Condé Nast a couple years later. We just did everything. I was running the test kitchen. I was butchering the fish. I was writing the recipes, running a crew, and then feeding. We had these like epic long closes. So closes when you close the magazine, you send it to you ship to the printer. You ship the magazine to the printer, and so you close your final pages. And we'd be there late at night, and I just started making family meal because I was like, everybody is like just worked to the bone here,
right.
Working 15-hour days. Let's sit down and eat some pasta and have a little glass of wine, and then get back to it. So I took that spirit of Barbuto there. But then as I evolved and stepped up the hierarchy of the masthead, every company I worked for was very, very different. Every job was very, very different.
I remember we met, I think it was 2011, right when the Macintosh opened. You were at Bonap. And we came and saw you in New York because that's what you did. They called them the PR people.
That's right.
Called them desk side.
I miss the old desk side. Yeah, yeah. You guys came in the kitchen.
We would have an agenda across the city, and you're running. And
that was the first time I ever like Jeremiah was bringing in and utilizing like triggerfish and triple tail. Species that were not typically on menus.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
What thinking about that time and now, what role do you think food media, how has that evolved and changed?
Well, I mean, there's been an ebb and flow. There's been peaks and valleys in the industry for sure. I mean, I came up with a time, so I got into food media full time in 2008. Right as the bottom was falling out of media, like advertising was going way down. A lot of people were losing their jobs. The economy was, we were going into a recession.
Right.
And that's all I knew. So I knew, all I knew was like running a tight ship, smaller budgets. And then Condé Nast decided to fold Gourmet. And that
I
decision
remember
to
that.
fold Gourmet and to bring Bon Appetit from California to New York City is what opened the door for me to take that job at Bon App. So the media shrinking that way gave me an opportunity. And I think there are fewer brands now. There are brands that are being squeezed. I came in during the rise of the blogs, and the blogs are having a hard time right now because of what's happened with Google, and they're not getting the same traffic they would get before. And now we're seeing what's happening through social video, and where a social brand can, that could be the only outlet.
Right.
And then now you've also got newsletters. And so newsletters they can be hugely successful brands, and how a newsletter author covers restaurants. So you've sort of had this like fracturing in food media. There's all these different types of media now. But the thing that really fascinates me is that, you as a restaurateur, as a business owner, you're in charge of now thousands of very creative people. And you've got people in your organization that can create that media from within. And whether it's a newsletter or social media or video, I think what's really interesting is restaurants taking control of the narrative and telling their own stories,
Right.
and showcasing their staff and showcasing their farmer partners or whoever
Right.
it is, or that particular dish, the story behind a collaboration. That's what's really cool, is that now every hospitality brand has the potential to be their own media entity if they want to.
We've invested heavily in human capital in social media this year.
Yeah.
Video, all of that.
Yeah.
There was an interesting statistic about even websites. They're making their reservations through social media.
Yeah.
On their phone.
Yeah. And, and they're checking social media because they want to see the vibe of one of your spaces.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They'll read reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this where I want to go on a date? Is this where I want, my parents to take me when they come in town?
Right.
Is this where I want to go for a business meeting? Yeah. Social media is a great way to check that.
Yeah. How do you think you said a lot of people have lost their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
How has Hunter Lewis, not only have you navigated it, it appears that you've continued to rise. What's your secret sauce?
I'm very fortunate, a little bit lucky. And the way I look at this and operating in food media today is that I feel like I'm riding a wave. And I've been riding a really good long wave for some while. I want to keep riding it, especially with the people on our team that we have now. Like, we've got an awesome team. I think that right now, in working with Food and Wine, we work for a company at People Inc. that invests in food and wine. They believe in the power of food and wine, the reach, the growth potential. And getting that investment's huge, because I've worked for brands that don't get it, and I know what that feels like, to get squeezed so hard that you're not able to actually create at a level of excellence you want to.
Right.
You expect. So we've got that belief in ownership, which is huge, and then it's about our team, and our team culture is really strong, and everybody in the team takes ownership of it. And I've got people that I've worked with for a long time, like trusted deputies who've been through the fire. Whether it's personal crisis or the pandemic or Me Too, what's happened in restaurant spaces, they understand, and they've been in media long enough to understand the changes we're undergoing too. And then the other thing I think is a part of it is we talked about it, but that experience working in hospitality, experience working in restaurants and being behind the line. I went to work in restaurants because I was curious and I wanted to gain some legitimacy. But it helps me better understand the people we work with on a daily basis. And It's a growing event business. It's a big part of what we do. Our Best of Chef franchise um, having worked in these spaces before gives me more empathy and a better understanding of what makes restaurant people especially tick. And we make food and wine for them too,
Right.
for you guys,
Yeah.
and we're partnering with you all at our events, and if you're happy and if you feel fulfilled at those events, then they're going to work,
Right.
because it starts with the talent. So all this to say, I think for me, it's about having a company that believes in me and a company that believes in food and wine. It's about having a great team that believes in culture, and then it's about being close to the hospitality industry and really partnering with them to do food and wine events and to make sure that our coverage is on point too.
I love that. And I would say, I feel like there was a time in food media where, getting a mention as a restaurateur, getting a mention or a nod in one of the big pubs was like, man, that was the goal. But a lot of folks in your chair previous to, there was almost an aloofness,
Yeah.
an eliteness, sort of, and you're the opposite of that. And I've always appreciated that. You're very approachable. You're very down to earth. And it feels like you're on our side.
Yeah.
Which is Danny Meyer. That's a Danny Meyer term, is like, I'm on your side.
Right.
And I definitely feel, I've always felt that with you. And so thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, it's my nature. I mean,
Sure.
I'm a pleaser.
Yeah,
that's
me
why I
too.
love working in restaurants. You want to make people happy.
Want to make people happy.
Yeah, and I think sometimes to a fault, because it
Ditto.
eats you up inside when you
Ditto.
mess up or something goes wrong. But I'm also fortunate that in food and wine we celebrate. We're not taking down businesses. We don't do restaurant criticism in the traditional sense. And
yeah.
So if we don't like something, or if we have a bad experience, then there's plenty more great things to write about. And so that helps. But it's also it's that acknowledgement that, like, we're in this together.
Right.
And there's also a really big pie with enough to go around.
That's right.
And it's interesting because with our Best New Chef franchise, we started Best New Chefs in 1998. And we've been honoring a new class every single year since then. And this is everybody from Daniel Boulud and David Chang to Nancy Silverton, Kwame Onwuachi. These are people who have shaped cuisine in America. And we switched over from just the accolade when I came on board to then reinforcing it with a mentorship program, because you realize that these chefs' careers have changed overnight. They've got all this opportunity.
Right.
Okay, here's a potential cookbook deal. Here's a new restaurant partner that you have to navigate and figure out, is it a partnership you want? New sort of marketing or new sort of partnership and sponsorship opportunities.
Right.
And we realized we've got to help folks navigate this. You can't just, here's the award, go on. No,
right.
Actually, what's good for you is good for food and wine, and vice versa. So let's help try to invest and empower the best new chefs in a way. And now what that's expanded to from the mentorship program is thinking, okay, for these 399 best new chefs now, as of September of 2025, how do we form more of a community with these chefs? So it becomes a network that can be tapped into, where people can meet, they can solve problems together, they can band together and work on, some kind of healthcare initiative, or, hey, how did you get paid vacation for your staff for that amount of time?
Right.
Walk me through that. And so there's a sharing of knowledge. And then also what we're seeing too is just people want to gather. They want to get together. And when best new chefs get together, magical things happen.
Right.
And so part of my job now is really trying to make sure that we can create more space for these people to gather, and just break bread, and I think that's going to be the future for us, is thinking about expanding our event business overall for consumers and our guests, but thinking about how do we create more meaningful moments for people in the hospitality industry to come together at those events as well, where they're sort of consumer facing, but also there's more moments for them together as a group where it's more behind the scenes.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that I don't know another publication that's done that. That's really very cool.
Thank you.
Because, listen, I say this almost every podcast. We don't talk a lot about the business of restaurant, and it's not nearly as sexy, right? I always say at the intersection of art and commerce, there's a lot of tension. So I love that, and I found that I had a friend recently call me and say, I'm thinking about investing in a restaurant. And so the first thing I said was, well, don't. But if you're gonna do it, and it's a chef that he's very fond of, and I said, is there a business person involved?
Right.
Because you want the chef creating, right? And having that yin and yang inside of a restaurant, like here's the creativity, okay, but we have to. It has to make business sense.
Business sense doesn't always align with like a cooking sense.
Correct.
And oftentimes it doesn't.
That's why a lot of restaurants fail, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I think that financial literacy, how to read a P&L.
Yep.
A lot of people are they don't want to ask questions.
Right.
Thankfully, AI is kind of helping. It can help chefs, especially, sort of be behind the scenes and look at things or analyze a P&L a little bit differently. There are some tools there with AI that are helpful, but I'm very interested in like creating more space and more time for people to get together to talk about these things. I think the thing that's interesting is whether you're in media or you're in hospitality, you and I see each other on the road at conferences.
Yep.
These conferences are becoming echo chambers. It's a lot of the same people saying the same things.
Right.
And I personally want to learn from other industries. I want to learn from other leaders. I want to learn from athletes and, coaches of sports teams. I want to learn from Fortune 500 CFOs and glean more from them. And I think it's time for us to be cross-pollinating in a different way with leaders. I think that's what's going to help the restaurant and the hotel industry continue to evolve, is like looking outside itself a little bit more. I
agree. I find even if I'm at a dinner party and I'm the only restaurant person there, like my energy level, because I'm I'm perpetually curious. Like if you told me you're in the widget business, I'm going to go, well, tell me about that. What kind of margins are there? I'm constantly wanting to learn because, at the Indigo Road, so we are transparent about our P&Ls. Everybody can see the P&L.
Huge.
And I've had a lot of operators like, I don't know, you want the bartender scene? Absolutely. Because that same bartender who might see you made X amount of dollars this year, we have all kinds of money. You can then say, right, but remember we borrowed $2.5 million to open this, so we don't have that money in the bank. There's a bank loan you don't see on the P&L. There's, the more people in our industry that understand the economics, I think it just makes us a better industry.
Yeah.
I tell people, what we pay in rent, and on an average in our restaurants, $20,000 to $30,000 a month. And they're shocked. We have a restaurant where we pay $80,000 a month in rent.
That's insane.
It is insane. And, those kind of things, when you're sitting there making the new pasta dish or thinking about cooking fish in a different way, that's a long way away from that.
Yeah.
But they have to be in balance.
But I think that transparency is key, because you want your senior folks and you want the people that report to them to understand the moves they're making and how they impact the business, or how they're pushing you ahead. And then you got to open up enough room for innovation too, where people aren't thinking about a bottom line.
Absolutely.
And they're free to create.
Absolutely.
And
sometimes it needs to just be about creativity. Sometimes, I thought our friend Will Guidera talked about that in Unreasonable Hospitality really well, where he said, do all the fun things and have a budget, but don't lead. Sorry to my accounting folks. You can't let the bean counters make the decisions.
Right.
They need to report the news, but you got to let the creative people have their time.
Yeah, the bean counters are not shaping strategy.
No. How do you, I mean, you've been doing this a while. And I think about just like in the last couple of years, trends, you know, even in design, you got to have an Instagram wall. How do you guys at Food and Wine sort of decide like, okay, there's something there and that's terrible and that'll be gone in a year. How do you sort of sift through that?
Well, it's
especially generationally, right? You and I are closer in age and I'm the old guy in the room now.
Yeah, I think on the generational front, I don't worry about it. I feel like quality is quality. And if you're telling a great story that it's going to resonate with people, whether they can go and afford to go do that right now and they've got that like Amex Platinum card and they can go afford that experience, or they're younger and they're more aspirational and maybe they're coming at that story not through the magazine but through a video on our social media. Right. So I don't really break our audience down much by generation.
Okay.
I definitely break our workforce down by generation, by personality type of different generations. You and I were thinking about talking about that and like, you know, the difference between workers of different ages and how they come to their work. But so when it comes to what we put out there in the universe on any platform, whether it's an event or it's a newsletter or a social video or the magazine or something on the homepage, an award, I'm not thinking about that audience in like generational segments. We're thinking about it more like what platform is this story going to be told on first? You know, does it make sense for this to be a cover story and we're going to make a big splashy moment? Does it make more sense for this story to come out first on a stage at one of our events and then it comes in the magazine later? So we really think about it that way. And so when it comes to trends, I think it's the benefit of experience, you know, and it's kind of having that divining rod and staying close to things, to being curious, keeping your eyes and ears open, making sure you're talking to people out there in your field, making sure you're staying close and connected to people in the hospitality space, seeing what they're excited about. Right. Oftentimes what they're excited about, what they're geeking out about, becomes something that can become more mainstream a bit later. Right. You know, and so for Food and Wine, we don't want to be like the coolest, like the hippest. We don't want to be like 5 steps ahead of our mass audience. We want to be a half step. We want to be the sort of guides that help carry folks along. Right. You know, and so I like that. When we're building the lineups for the magazine, we work, 9-10 months out. And so you kind of have to look around some corners. But it helps us because we don't want to be that far ahead. We don't want to be that edgy. Right. So it's a mix when you decide on what you're gonna publish. It's a mix between nowadays. It's the sort of like old school editorial instinct that takes time to develop. This is a thing. This is really interesting. We're excited about this because it's a delicious set of recipes, or it's a chef who's really interesting. It's a restaurant that's part of the zeitgeist. It's a travel destination that you need to get to, or it's a cool set of wines you should be buying at the bottle shop. And we look at it in that way. And then now we have all this data at our fingertips. Yeah. We know what people are searching for online. We know what they're looking at and what videos are performing. We know how our newsletters are performing. So you have this whole set of data on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, annual, on what those consumer trends are looking like, what the analytics are. And so you can marry, if you want, you can either ignore all that, or you can take it and you can apply that to your editorial instinct, and it can confirm something or deny it, or you can just say, F it, we're going to do this story anyway, even though there's no search data to it. But that's the cool thing now, is that I've got more tools than ever to think about how we shape stories. Could this potentially resonate? And it really helps on the recipe front, understanding what people are shopping for, what they're cooking, what they maybe won't make, and the way that we shape stories now is very different than the pandemic. I mean, we did a laminated dough story and taught our readers how to make croissants during the pandemic because they had time. you know,
Yes.
and butter wasn't as expensive then
Right.
as it is now. And now we would not do that story.
Right.
People don't have time. They're back in that, like, they're in offices, they're traveling,
Right.
they're not at home looking for like a cool kitchen experiment. So that timing and those phases of life also dictate the decision too, and how we're going to cover a trend.
I love that. Do you think your role is to create trends? I mean, in other words, if you're seeing something that is new, is it the role of food media to report on that, or is it the role of food media to confirm that? Does that make sense?
It does. It can be a little both.
Okay.
We certainly cover people that are creating trends more than we are actually creating the trend. But
Right.
hell, I mean, if we can create a trend, if we can start a wave, or a ripple, that's something. I think now more than ever with food and wine events, and the fact that we're hosting these events now. That we've got the Food and Wine Classic in Aspen, which we've been doing for 43 years. We've got the Food and
Which
Wine
is the
Classic.
coolest food event in the world, by the
Thank you.
way.
Thank you.
I was privileged enough to be on a panel. I think it was 2018. And man, what a great event.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And now we're in your backyard, the Food and Wine Classic in
Charleston,
Charleston, year 2. We think these events are going to continue to expand, meaning not that we don't want the footprints to get a lot bigger, because we want to make sure we can control that environment to a degree, and that experience is really good. But what's happening at these events are definitely creating trends, because you're rubbing elbows with those tastemakers. You're learning from those chefs and wine pros. You're having those experiences. There are parties that have themes to them that can shape the way that people think about a cuisine, and like that can create a trend or create a ripple. So I think what we're doing in the live space through our events has that potential for sure. And then we're still trying to tell those stories that create buzz, and get a lot of impressions, and that people are talking about. Like media still has the power to do that with one magazine cover, or,
Right.
or one social video post, or one newsletter. So for sure.
What's the thing in your role that you're most proud of when Food and Wine does X? Is that, or where do you feel most fulfilled in your role? I guess is a better way to ask.
I mean, I think day in and day out, what drives me is working with a very creative team and a talented team, and seeing them execute hard things at a super high level. And then they stand for excellence, and I think on our better days, we're providing a place where people can grow their careers and gain more experience, and that's super rewarding. That's the thing as a leader that drives me. Honestly, just being able to be a part of a creative process and to
Right.
create tangible, usable things that have the opportunity to bring joy and wonder and awe. Physical products like the magazine, or events, which can be more ephemeral, but a lot of magic happens over a 3-4 day weekend. Whether it's a conversation or meeting a hero, or like gaining new friends, or just experiencing a great glass of wine, hearing a great concert, whatever it is. That's a pretty cool thing, and it's not something I thought I was getting in the business to do, is produce events, but there's a lot of magic that can happen at an event. And I think when we're at our best, they become almost like a summer camp for food lovers and a summer camp for the industry, for booze, those that want it, from the regular summer camp. But it's that can be a good feeling of, and a sense of accomplishment of, wow, we pulled this thing off, and people are really happy.
Why get them more into events? I mean, you always had Aspen, but you guys.
Yeah, I mean, you're a business guy. I think the nitty gritty of it is that events are anti-AI. AI cannot create a physical gathering, and I think people are going to want to gather even more in the future, because there's so much of our lives that are moving into it's much more synthetic. It's much more online. It's much more generated by AI. And it's going to get even more so.
Yeah.
And I think the hedge against that, and the bulwark against that too, is live events, It's physical, tangible books and magazines and things that will continue to retain value because they're real life manifestations of creativity. And so events in particular, think about it from an audience perspective and how you build an event and sell tickets, but really how you work with partners and like-minded companies that share your values, and they want to be in front of that audience too.
Right.
And so those partnerships and sponsorships are a big key to the business too.
What does it take for your team when you're trying to teach your team about the value of the events that maybe they're obviously more media driven in their minds? What is it they need to know to really know that how hard it is to do?
Yeah, I think it's in a lot of ways it's almost exactly what you guys do.
Yeah.
All right, we're running a business. There's a bottom line here.
Right.
This doesn't work if we're not going to earn meaningful revenue here.
Right.
And so it is transactional. But like if you're transactional first, nothing works.
Right.
Nothing works because you can feel it in an instant. And so what it really comes down to is hospitality. And what we're trying to impress upon the folks that work with us at these events, whether you're editorial, you're in sales and marketing, you're on the events team, is that you practice hospitality by building these events, by producing them, by inviting consumers to them, by inviting the talent and the chefs to participate in them. You have to practice that and exercise the hospitality muscles. And I think the people that really get it well, and they understand,
Right.
Oh, actually, this is going to be amazing.
Right.
Because we're going to surprise and delight people, and we're going to create magic in that room, and the music's going to be epic, and that raw bar is going to look so beautiful, and that stew is going to be so delicious. The whole vibe is going to be great.
Right.
And so you're producing a moment, and the most important thing is how people feel in that room. And so that's a new, interesting wrinkle for us. Even though we've been doing events for a long time, but as we expand them, is like, how do you scale the hospitality gene, in a way
Right.
where people really get that, and they can go and practice that, and make people feel. I want you to feel as good at our events as you make us feel in your spaces.
Right.
And to be a food media company doing that that's a tall order. But it's not going to work well, and we're not going to be able to grow our events if we cannot continue to figure out how to practice hospitality.
I love people that love hospitality, and it's obvious that you do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's like it's how do you make people feel?
It's how you make people feel. When I do our culture and coffee talk, I literally say, if you want to boil our company down to one thing, it's the Maya Angelou quote. People will forget what you said. They'll forget what you did. They'll never forget how you made them feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're a dad. You have two great daughters who I got to meet last night. If they came to you and said, Dad, I want to be in hospitality, what would you say?
I would encourage it.
Me too.
It's funny. My daughter Smith, who's 12 now, first trip to New York City, we were going to visit my girlfriend, now wife, Jen Davidson.
Of Barbuto, by the way, just to connect those dots.
Yeah, so that's the other thing about this whole food game and hospitality is like, I met my wife at Barbuto. She was a hostess. I was a line cook, and fast forward all these years later, we got together during the pandemic, long distance, and we ended up getting married at Barbuto.
I love
back
that.
in 2023. So the place where I learned to cook, and is also it became my restaurant family, then became my family. So there's that story. And then when we took the girls to New York City for Thanksgiving, their first Thanksgiving up there, we went to Barbuto, and Smith, she was probably 7 at the time. She goes in the back, she puts on a dishwasher shirt, and she starts shaping pizza doughs. And here I think, okay, this is great. Waxman's babysitting her, and she'll be back at the table in a couple minutes. Well, I look at my watch; it's like 30 minutes, an hour, and I go back check on her. She's like, "Dad, I got this." She's got flour all over her hands. She's so proud. She's bringing food out to the table that she had helped cook.
Oh wow!
She was in the kitchen for 5 hours. Now, listen, she knew I had worked there. She knew Jen had run
Right.
Barbuto for 15 years, but she didn't have anywhere near the context to think, okay, I can come and hang out here. She just fell in love with the cooking game immediately, and I was so proud. But I was like, oh wow,
Wow.
what kind of monster are we creating here?
Yeah.
So I think she kind of inherently gets it.
Yeah.
And if either of them are interested in it, then I would totally encourage it. I think everybody should work
I do too.
in hospitality.
I do too. I had a winemaker friend, Jed Steele, who has since sold his winery, but he said, I think everybody should work in the restaurant business. I met my wife at a food and wine event. She worked for Billy Reed. And that's just so funny. Now she's my family. We got engaged at Gramercy Tavern.
Love it.
It's all around food.
I love it.
It's
I love it.
all around food.
Yeah.
What is your hope for the media industry? Like, as you look out to the next 10, 15 years, there's predictions that the physical magazine will go away. I hope not. I still buy books. I still like all that stuff. But where do you think food media is going, or where does it need to go?
Well, I can't say where the industry's going. I can talk about what the pressures on the industry are and what's happening with AI. I can talk about, where the money is flowing and where it's not. But my real wish right now is that, and I've said this before, but like, I'm a huge basketball fan. I grew up.
Everything comes back to the Tar Heels.
Everything comes back to Tar Heels. Just get over it, Steve. But like, as somebody who was like a
Go Dogs,
huge Michael Jordan fan and a Bulls fan, like, and I watched him struggle and I watched him compete. And I remember when the Pistons used to beat up on the Bulls, and the Knicks, and and then the Bulls became ascendant, and like that Eastern Conference, like you were forged by fire, and there was so much competition. I want there to be more competition. Like, I think competition makes us better, and that's what I'm concerned with food media right now. Is like, we need more '90s Bulls and '90s Lakers and Knicks. We need more strong brands because it's better for everybody, and I crave that competition. And
who do you like? That maybe a brand that's up and coming.
I love what. And not just because I worked there and it was my first magazine job, but I love what Saveur has done under Kat's leadership. And like, she got some investment and bought the company, and they put out a beautiful product. I love what they're doing.
Cool.
I think what the Substack model right now is fascinating, and that, you've got very established people that have their own brands now, like Alison Roman, and the way she's communicating to people through her Substack. And then you've got up and comers coming up through it too. I think that's a really cool model right now, and in a way to be in front of your audience and to actually tap in a very personal level with your audience. I think that's really cool right now.
Okay.
I think somebody who's interesting to watch right now on a lot of different levels is, and him from Charleston's Brooks Wrights. I think he's doing some really cool stuff.
The journeyman.
Yeah. And restaurateur for sure, and tastemaker. He started Jack Rudy, the drinks company, but now he is making shirts with his wife Erin. But the way he's communicating through Substack's really cool.
Yeah.
And that's become a big platform for him. So, and then when I was talking earlier about people kind of taking control of their own narrative and really putting their ethos forward, like, you can do that a lot more now than you could before, when it was just food media brands as the gatekeepers.
Right. I keep trying to talk Brooks. So we don't have the Soho House model private club in Charleston, but you need the tastemaker. And I keep saying, Brooks, like, I'm not nearly as cool as you are. Could you please do some kind of private club? So Brooks, impeccable. He would be great. All right, now time for the rapid fire questions. What does hospitality, how would you define hospitality? What does it mean to you?
Hospitality is the way that you make people feel. And so there can be warm hospitality, there can be poor hospitality.
Yep.
But it is as simple as that. How are you making somebody feel, and are you welcoming them? and I think a lot about it. The first lesson I had in hospitality, I didn't realize this until recently, was when I was a kid. And my grandmother, Mom Pat, her name's Pat Erickson. Um, I was in her kitchen in Asheville, North Carolina when I was a kid. And she said, your job when you go into a room is to find the person that feels the least comfortable and to make them feel welcome. And that's your job at a party. That's your job at a dinner table. That's your job when you're out there outside of this house.
Wow, that's powerful.
And that really stuck with me, and I, kind of internalized it. And I was like, actually, yeah, that's hospitality.
Love that. What's your hope for the hospitality industry?
I hope that the hospitality industry continues to grow and professionalize, and that
Amen.
and people that work in it and the people that are guests of these spaces understand that it's a business, and it continues to get even more professional. I think we're a long ways away from those days of like restaurants as pirate ships.
The Wild West.
There's a few pirate ships left,
Yeah.
but those pirate ships have now become sleeker vessels, and they're banding together more into flotillas, and I think that I think it's fascinating to see what's going to shake out over the next few years as you have these super dynamic creatives, but you also have more operators like you who are coming in and sharing your knowledge and gifts with people.
Yep.
And people are looking at this more as a business, more as a the bottom line too. So I think that's going to bode well for the industry for sure.
I agree.
And I think my great hope, and we touched on this, is that guests continue to be curious enough to educate themselves about what they're walking into, and that they also understand that they've got a role to play in the hospitality equation, and that's a two-way street. And it's not just about what you're receiving, but it's about what you're giving as a guest.
Amen.
So I'm hopeful there. I don't see it enough yet, but I'm hopeful.
We're getting there.
That's a job that everyone
We're
has
gonna
to help
get there.
teach.
Yeah.
But I think that the future is bright, because I feel like the more that we're online, the more that things become fake and synthesized by robots, that human craving and need to gather is only going to grow.
I agree.
We're just going to crave it even more, and we're going to hopefully value it even more than we do now.
I agree.
And restaurants are the space for that.
Absolutely. Trends from 25 that you'd like to see go away, and any trends in 26 that you see coming?
Trends from 25. I am not a huge fan of the reviews on social media in a parking lot with a dashboard cam, the mukbang, of like people just digging into a meal and then giving their critique of it. It can be transformational for businesses and driving customers, but I just don't need to see people shoving food in their faces, in their cars.
Yeah.
And that's not for me anymore. So I would hope that would go away.
I would too. And the one thing I would ask, whenever we get complaints, right, which invariably comes, the first question I always ask is, did somebody check on you?
Mm-hmm.
Did somebody ask you how your meal was? And if so, why didn't you were talking about giving and receiving? Like, if you're not happy in the moment, let us fix it before you go to social media, before you do the thing. I'd like to see that go away. I doubt I will, but one can hope.
Yeah. I think when it comes to next year and thinking about culinary trends, I think that the American dining audience is just now beginning to understand on a food level the power of umami. And I think it's really interesting as a home cook how many tools you have at your disposal now in terms of ingredients that can bring umami to your cooking, whether it's expected things in your kitchen like soy sauce, to now how many homes have fish sauce, or people are using MSG more freely, to different kinds of liquid aminos and things like that. So if you think about it in the restaurant space, I was talking to one of our new best new chefs, Pila Lauren. He owns Mon in Philadelphia, and they just opened up a second restaurant. And in the front, it's an Italian raw bar, and in the back, it's Southeast Asian seafood.
Wow.
And he said, the way I look at cuisine is through the lens of light umami and dark umami. And it blew my mind. I have not gotten this out of my mind since Pila said this. And I was like, the way that he's thinking about his cuisine, the way he's thinking about his flavors and different levels of funk and different levels of brightness. So I think that we're going to see this continued transformation of an understanding of what umami is and how it can deliver these big, bold flavors that people now expect. I think that's going to be cool.
Light and dark umami.
Yeah.
Yeah. These are the like old guy moments that I'm like, wow, that's a whole different.
I haven't stopped thinking about it since you said it.
That's cool. 2 more questions. What are you afraid of? What keeps you up at night?
I'm afraid of the coarseness of the world right now and the lack of dialogue.
Right.
I'm afraid of division. And I think that it feels at times like this world is spinning out of control in a way that we might not be able to rein it back in.
Right.
And so I think on a general level, that's a pretty broad, vague, and scary thing, but
shared by many.
Yeah,
I think.
The divisiveness of this world and what that might mean for my daughters, that definitely occasionally keeps me up at night or wakes me up at night.
Same for mine. So the name of this podcast is Say Grace. I wrote a book. You wrote an endorsement. Thank you.
I still give your book out to people when I'm on the road.
Thank you. In the South, you mentioned the table. So the word grace, I've heard a couple of definitions. One is a gift freely given without expectation of return. But for me, and I'm sure for you, when we would sit at Sunday supper, we would hold hands and say grace. And Grandma would you pick one of the kids and really what it was about was what we were thankful for.
Right.
So what are you thankful for?
I am thankful for a beautiful wife and wonderful kids and a job that provides and that gives me the opportunity to be creative and to be a leader.
That's awesome. We have a gift. Here we go. This thing is so heavy.
Smithy.
But we have a gift for
thanks,
you. Smithy is a Charleston-based company, and we engraved your name on the back of it. So
Thanks, man.
You can flip it over when you're making cornbread or whatever. But Hunter, I appreciate you. Appreciate your friendship most of all.
Steve, thanks, buddy.
Thanks for being on Say Grace.
It's great to be with you.
Thank you, man. If you enjoyed what you heard, tell a friend. We are on all the major platforms. Thanks again. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Say Grace, Food for Thought and Hospitality. We hope you join us next time as we continue to dive deeper into the inspirational stories about the transformative power of hospitality.